Real Men Feel with Andy Grant encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been told, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but all men can benefit from. If you would like a one-on-one conversation to help you get clear on what you want in life and what's in your way of getting there, visit theandygrant.com/talk and book a no-obligation, no-cost appointment. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Now let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. I'm very happy that you are tuning in today because today is our 200th episode. Holy smokes. I mean, I really can't believe that. When I started this program with my co-host Apio back in 2016, the goal was, let's get to 3 shows before I quit. Like, that was really what was happening. So today we're going to have a party. We're going to have chicks and guns and fire trucks and hookers and yoo-hoo. No. What we're going to do is actually talk about porn, right? The big P, right? Pornography, something most, if not all men experience to some degree, but probably don't talk about. My guest today is certified mindfulness counselor, Matt Sinkovitz, and his mission is helping men liberate themselves from porn addiction so they can eliminate depression, reclaim their power, and create lives worth living. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here, brother.
Cool. As talking to you prior to the show, this has been a subject I've wanted to talk about, for as long as the show's been on. I've had a number of, in fact, it's always been female relationship coaches and actually even some sex workers on that talk about the healthy value of porn and what it can bring to relationships and to not keep it secret and to be open about, your sexuality and your kinks and all this sort of thing. So, first off, do you find that porn is just bad? Is it just bad news for everybody? Is it detrimental to all people?
Yeah, good question. I actually don't take that approach to it. That's really not my perspective. I don't judge it. Some people seem to have a healthy relationship with it. Either it's never been an issue for them. They just they don't really gravitate toward it, or they maintain a healthy relationship with it, either in their personal lives or within their relationships. And that's fine, man. We just kind of exist. I started doing this work because some men do have this toxic relationship with it, sort of a compulsive or addictive type quality with it. And it really has toxic effects in their life. And that's really who we do our work for. And that seems to be, most of the men that comprise our community.
Cool. So this isn't about breaking a bond to porn based on religious or moral grounds of you as a coach at all.
No, it's really just if it doesn't work for you and you can't seem to get it out of your life, then we're here. Yeah.
All right, cool. So what are some signs that someone's use of pornography has crossed over into some level of abuse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I would say I really I like to direct the guys, the members of our community to go in and kind of gauge. Sometimes they'll come into our online forum and maybe they're trying to get a feel from, is porn healthy for me? Does porn work for me? Is it something I should uproot or eliminate from my life? I always direct it back to you. Like, what is your experience with it? Some of the common signs or symptoms of maybe that someone may be experiencing who maybe the relationship is not very healthy or good for them. Depression, remorse, fear or anxiety, regret. If they're hiding their pornography use, if it's consuming a lot of their time, if maybe they're using porn several times a day or a week, and then they're feeling disconnected within their relationship or their marriage, or maybe they're not being intimate with their partner. Maybe they're spending a lot of money. Maybe they're having like some sort of extramarital affair with it, or through those online venues. Those would be a couple indicators. Yeah, just general unhealthy kind of effects, or yeah.
So it's much more recognize it in yourself, like feeling discomfort, feeling like, wow, this isn't what I thought it was, or I'm discovering I'm way too much time on this. So it's
exactly.
I guess no, I don't want to use. Well, I'm going to use it. I don't like the term. I don't like the idea of diagnosing and labeling, but there's got to be some sort of self acceptance of an issue.
Yeah, you just kind of know it. You just kind of know it, and I think when you're younger, you don't recognize it as much. But I think as you maybe, at least this was me in my experience, as I grew and matured, as I grew and matured more spiritually, as I grew into more like leadership type positions, yeah, I just kind of began to recognize it wasn't in alignment with me, and I was having these kind of negative or adverse feelings or experiences afterward, yeah, or in association with, yeah. Mhm.
Do you find that watching porn is somehow part of the all-American image of masculinity?
It certainly seems like it's a normal part of the journey, or normal part of the male experience. Yeah, I would say so. I don't know if it's I don't know how healthy it is, but it definitely seems to be like part of the narrative, and yeah, pretty commonly accepted and
Yeah,
expected. Yeah.
yeah, because it almost seems like I it's hard. I can't recall growing up that someone was picked on or made fun of or anything because they used porn. It was more
Right.
the opposite. If you didn't, like, then, oh, what's wrong with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly.
So, um, what's your experience with porn? Did it start at a young age? Did you have your own problem and then went into helping yourself and helping others, or how did this all come about for you?
Yeah, I think like most people that end up in some sort of service-oriented work, or a lot of people, it often stems from their own experience. So yeah, I think like most guys, probably in my early teens or somewhere in that ballpark, introduced to porn through a friend, or you see something online, or you find something around, and then you kind of get into it. And again, like I think like a lot of guys, you know, are our early experiences are oftentimes innocent. You don't really realize what you're getting yourself into, but yeah, just kind of using it, and being around it, and going to it, throughout my teen years, and then up into your 20s and even 30s, and after a while you kind of realize that it's something that's kind of part of your regular life, and kind of a part of your regular, I don't know, one of your go-to soothing mechanisms, one of your go-to drugs, if you will. Yeah. So that was really it for me. Just it was a part of my life, and it was normal, and it was fine for a lot of my life. But there became a time when I realized I couldn't get it out of my life. Right. I continued to go back to it, and I didn't want to. But yeah, it was really just a result of my own personal experience, and also tuning into the conversations around me, and recognizing that there were a lot of guys probably also going through it. You kind of hear, but also just kind of knowing that it's not something a lot of guys could talk about.
Mm.
So I just at one time I was doing some work with with one of my coaches, and really just kind of doing some work around keying in on who and how I was most qualified to serve, and I kind of identified that like sexuality was a theme that continued to come up in my life, and was the cause of a lot of suffering for me, and a lot of my own personal angst as I grew,
Hmm.
and really keyed on this issue of porn, as it was something for me that I dealt with all throughout my life, and had gotten resolved for myself, and just kind of knew that there was just so many guys that were dealing with it, and yeah, just kind of knowing by like coming out and sharing my own story around it, it would give permission to other guys to come into the conversation, and be willing to share as well. So
Was there one particular moment when it crossed the line, like, wow, this is an issue, or was it more of a gradual thing over a period of time?
yeah, I think it was a gradual thing, probably over, really, man, I would say I knew porn was out of alignment for me, probably for a decade. I mean, I think there was like points of awareness for me all throughout my relationship with porn, specifically when I would maybe like use porn or something like that, like throughout the day, and then maybe not be, um, like it would take away from work, or I would use porn instead of going out on a Friday night. I'd be at home on a porn bender or something like that,
Hmm.
a Friday night or a Saturday night, where I would use porn, and then I would go out to the bar, and I felt socially awkward and sexually disconnected, and I kind of like I had blown all my power, you know what I mean, so to speak.
Hmm.
And I would go out, and I just didn't really feel like, I felt like it was creating like sexual issues for me. So I would say, man, I had this awareness around it for maybe a decade, But I think as I grew, it became more and more clear to me that as I grew, I was like, this isn't going anywhere healthy. Like, where does this
Hmm.
end up in another 10 years? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that was it. And then there's just periods. I mean, just to be like straight up, you have like if you have a relationship with porn, and if there's any guys out there listening that can relate, you have like these maybe benders, or you go a couple days in a row, or maybe you're using porn a couple times in a day, and you kind of have this compulsive relationship with it, and it's not something you want, but you continue to go back, and at some point you kind of like, man, this isn't cool, and I know this is not something that's in alignment with me. However, I continue to go back despite these commitments I continue to make. So that for me was like something that I realized, what, I need to look into like a coach or something. That's what I ended up doing, is investing in a coaching program. Yeah.
So you sought out help specifically for porn.
Yeah, I mean, I've been investing in my life like through personal and spiritual development for forever. In this specific case, I was like, I need a coach. You know what I mean? And I saw it. And interestingly, the coach I ended up working with was a gentleman that I had sought out years before, and at the time I just wasn't ready to make that investment. I spent a couple $1,000s on a group program, and I got some one-on-one work and everything, and I wasn't ready at that time, But then a couple years later, I found myself. I was like, it's time, and I was experiencing enough pain around it, if you will, that I was ready to make that investment and really take it seriously. Yeah.
Cool, because I've done countless personal growth programs and had a number of coaches going back till, I think it was like 2006 is when I started really getting into, wait, I could be more than I am. And I don't recall porn showing up in anybody's, interview process, checklist, and questions of, often you get kind of the wheel of life and your relationships and your job and your health and all these different things to evaluate. And porn was never on one of them.
On the radar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Interestingly, though, like with so many things, it's like, it was one of those things for me that I recognized as I grew in awareness, and continued to do all the work that you just mentioned. It was one thing that continued to sabotage all the key areas of my life. I found it had a cascading effect, like so many things, and it was creating some sort of hindrance in terms, I feel, of my spiritual growth or my spiritual evolution, the consciousness of my, evolution of my consciousness, if you will.
Yeah. And so in my personal experience, porn can be used as such a procrastination device for me. It's like, I'm like, oh, here are these things I get to do. And no, I'm watching porn. Like, wait, this wasn't on my list of things I need to do today. When did this happen? Like, how did I get here? Right. And it's just kind of the unconscious actions and choices.
I find like, so through my work, thankfully I can say that I'm porn free now, you know what I mean? But the urge still arises, it's still like that impulse still arises. I'm a mindfulness practitioner as well. So I've learned to really pay attention to thoughts, feelings, sensations as they arise. And I can now pay attention. This is what I teach our guys to do, is like learn to pay attention to these loops. It arises as a thought, it arises as the feeling triggers a thought triggers a feeling. But I've learned to recognize that. And another part that we focus on is like, a lot of times when we go to porn, it's not because we're just trying to satisfy a sexual urge. A lot of times we're hungry, we're tired, we're lonely, we're just looking for intellectual stimulation. There's a lot of reasons that we end up down the rabbit hole, but it's oftentimes a very toxic way to meet another need, if you will.
Yeah. And I find that the root of all addictions are in avoiding a feeling that's really present.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is similar to that. And
so if you don't mind, so part of the process that worked for me, and the part of the process I teach is like, let's work to identify what needs are really coming up, and how can I now meet those needs in a healthier way. Right. It's like, Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned you're porn free. So is the goal, is someone seeking your help, is the goal to get everyone porn free, or is it more find that healthy balance place, or
that's a good question. I don't think that's exactly defined. I think for a guy like me, for instance, my intention and my standard is absolute abstinence. For me, it's kind of like, and I find like a lot of the guys that really resonate with me the most, it's kind of like, can someone that's a real alcoholic, should they have a beer, or can they have just one beer? So for me, it's abstinence. And I think a lot of guys that resonate with me and the work that I do most in our community kind of identify that, it's an abstinence. It's like probably shouldn't do it at all kind of thing. Because if you open the gate, it can just spiral out of control pretty quickly. So we draw a pretty clear line on it. But again, I always really respect the individual's journey, so maybe down the road you do, maybe reintroduce it to in a healthy way within your relationship or something like that. So I don't have a clear rule on that, but generally speaking, we do support the guys in creating absolute abstinence, and I find that's the most effective, at least with our methodology. Yeah.
Right. So you kind of mentioned a little bit of AA and total abstinence, and I think that one of the phrases is, one's too many and 10's not enough when it comes to drinks. So it is your teaching and coaching, is it related to like a 12-step program or not at all?
No, I wouldn't say it is. I'm sure that if probably some of the work that I do and some of the different philosophies and methodologies I use, I'm sure that there's components of that in there. I never did like a 12-step thing, but I know that there's like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and there are like sex and sex addiction specific 12 steps out there, so I've not gone through the process and enough to be able to say that, it definitely lines up, but I'm sure there's components that are similar,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and also, if you don't mind, we talked about text as we were kind of prepping the conversation a little bit today. We actually utilize a Buddhist 12-step recovery kind of process, it's called Refuge Recovery by Noah Levine. And these guys actually have communities throughout the United States and probably the world. And it's like a Buddhist. And when I say Buddhist, it's not religious. It's just kind of like a mindful approach to recovery from addiction. So we incorporate that into our conversation and kind of engage like this mindfulness approach to abstinence from porn and any other compulsive or addictive behavior that you're dealing with. So there is probably a 12-step component now that you mentioned it. Yeah.
But you don't have a literally, now we're on step 2, everybody.
No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I have my process, but it's not that clearly delineated.
Yeah.
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
How bad can this get for guys? Like, do you dealing with people that have lost jobs, lost relationships, lost even more? Like what?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so the people like on the outside, maybe oftentimes just women who just don't kind of get it, or maybe, and there are guys that I have conversation with that it's like, yeah, porn's just never been an issue for me. Maybe they're thinking something else. They just kind of don't get it. And I have this vantage point, guys come into our community and they reach out to me specifically, or they share, or they get into one of our group programs, and they it's a very vulnerable space, and man, it destroys lives, it destroys marriages, money, careers, mental health. I mean, it gets really bad, man. And like, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg when we're looking at sex addiction, but porn is one thing, and then there's like the whole world of sex addiction, prostitutes and online relationships and all kind of stuff. It gets deep, but yeah, it's very detrimental, yeah.
So I'm older than the internet. When I was growing up, it was like, every neighborhood had that place where porn is in the woods over there, and you're finding old magazines, or someone had an uncle that had their Playboy collection in the basement and things like that. So that's how it was shared. So has the benefits and widespread use of technology is the fact that porn is everywhere and easily accessible, is that something that has made this a worse situation for people?
Oh, I would definitely say so. I mean, like, yeah, same for me. Like when I was young and introduced to porn, I didn't have the internet in my house, but as soon as that internet dial-up modem came into the house, and then it progressed to high speed, and then it progressed to being on your phone, then high speed on your phone. Yeah, I think so. It's just like, you need to scratch that itch. Boom, you can scratch that itch instantaneously.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry behind the porn industry, and it's very intentional about, I think, getting people addicted, frankly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's very intentional, and I think they know that they're tapped into that sex drive, and it can turn into a very compulsive type relationship. And you feel that urge, and boom, one touch of a button, you're there, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear a story about guys using porn in the bathroom at work, and this is where it can be detrimental and create issues, in the car, all kind of stuff, man, because it's always right there, it's always right there.
Yeah. I remember I worked at a small startup, and I was part of the IT department, and the CEO had us start tracking websites people were visiting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to give him a list. And the list was longer than any of us would have guessed of people that visited porn sites at work.
Yes.
And many said, it's my lunch hour. I can
Right.
do whatever I want. And
Right.
I was just like, wow. Like, I was just really stunned, but the list was long, and the people defending their right to have access to porn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is judgmental because I'm making a judgment, but like, I would think like, well, if you can't, make it through your 8-hour day without looking, then there's got to be an issue there.
There's one of your maybe red flags, so to
Yeah.
speak, as you inquired about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first time I remember coming and really confronted with, wow, this could be something that everybody can't control.
Yes.
But I'm it's kind of two-faced to me even saying that, because the times where my porn use might have ever been out of control, I was working at home, so it didn't affect her, so I'm like, oh, I didn't have that problem that guy had that I saw. But
Exactly.
and I'm even in different men's groups now, that even now as adult men, every now and then someone will say, hey, how often do you watch porn every day? And people are just interested, and there's a contest. And it's like, oh, I'm 3 times a day. Oh, I'm masturbating 5 times a day. And like, like, what are we?
Yeah, I know. Crazy, man. Crazy.
Do you have any? Do you get into the research and scientific side and have an idea like what watching porn actually does to our brains?
I first of all, I'm no expert, but I do look at that, and there's definitely a connection to like serotonin and different chemicals in the brain. I did a training in our group. First of all, let me just mention again, text. Your Brain on Porn is an excellent reference on this. So I've been through that a couple times, and I also suggest it to our guys to go through. But yeah, there's definitely a correlation to the brain, and I forget what part of the brain that it does affect. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely neurological connection there. Yeah.
Okay. And well, I guess there would have to be it's not the addiction into the level of alcohol and drugs where there's a physical need for a component.
Right.
But I in my own experience, any compulsive addiction, any addiction of an action, you do get addicted to those chemicals that your body is creating in response to that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think it's an interesting conversation, like the distinction between like what is compulsive behavior versus what is an addiction, but I know it lights up the brain the same way a drug would, you know what I mean? So there's like that in terms of an addictive quality. And what I would say is I think the distinction, because I've thought about it, we've had the conversation. So like the distinction between maybe where it's not an addiction like alcohol or drug, alcohol or drugs, you might go through a physical withdrawal if you don't have that substance, you know what I mean? Whereas if you don't get your porn, you're not going to have that kind of physical withdrawal, but you do have, ask anybody that has this relationship with porn or sex, this sex drive is a very powerful, compelling drive within the body, so I think, you do feel overcome by the urge, overcome by the impulse, it does seem to have a real like guys talk about not being able to control themselves. So it does seem to really have a powerful effect physically as well, but you don't get those physical withdrawal symptoms in the same way. I do hear about guys, again, we support the guys in this abstinence process. So I hear guys, day 7, day 10, day 20, day 30, going 40, 50 days, and maybe restless sleep, sweaty palms, perspiration, jittery, maybe so I do hear similar things, but it's not this hard physical reaction like you hear with drugs,
And I imagine that anytime you're depriving yourself of something you're used to having, and part of you wants to have that, the emotions you've been bearing are going to rise up too. So
absolutely,
be it anger, shame, whatever you've been using it to cover up is now there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now you got to deal with your shit, as I say. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like we're young, and we develop this relationship with porn, and that's always been our go-to. For some people, it's food. For some people, it's cigarettes. For some people, it's drugs. For whatever, it's different for everybody. But yeah, that's like our go-to to scratch the itch, and to soothe. And maybe we've never really giving ourselves the opportunity to address these things in a healthy way, you know?
You mentioned that at a young age. So any idea if the age someone starts engaging in porn has an outcome on the likelihood that it becomes a problem for them?
I don't. I mean, I would say the younger is probably the more dangerous because you're less conscious, you know, and you start developing these neural connections, you know what I mean? And it becomes more hardwired in the brain. I would think the younger is probably, you know, more dangerous, you know? Yeah, more likely. Yeah.
And we're talking about kind of the addictive nature, but then especially if you're young, the notion of seeing porn as reality. Like if your sex education
Yeah.
is from porn,
Hmm.
that's going to mess you up.
Absolutely. That's another one that I think Your Brain on Porn does a really nice job of covering. Yeah, a lot of guys, that is literally like, that's like their first sexual experiences, man. And then that is their idea of sex, and that's their idea of intimacy, you know? So yeah, it's very powerful in terms of, like, I think forming those expectations and those standards. Yeah.
So is part of breaking that addiction then finding a new way to learn and experience what healthy relationships, what intimacy is like in the real world?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a compelling motivator. You know, I think, you know, for me, like, a lot of the work we do is like, let's get it out of your life, you know, and let's return to some normalcy. And like, it's like, once you clear the clutter and you've got it out, you know, and you've created some stability, it's like, now I think your body has this your body, your mind, your spirit has this way of kind of seeking like natural homeostasis. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of resets, you know. If ever looking like no fap or anything like this, you know, these guys that are, it's like hardcore no porn, no ejaculation, no sex for extended periods, they call it like a reboot or a reset. So I think after a period of time, you know, once you are able to abstain, I think you can return, you know, to some healthy natural intimacy. I think there's like an auto course correction that takes place. So that was my experience, you know. Yeah.
You mentioned ejaculation, so let's get there. So does no porn, porn abstinence mean it's a masturbation abstinence, or are they two separate issues?
Not for us, not as a cold hard rule. Again, I always allow the guys to tune in with their own spirit. Like, you know, what do you feel like you're in need of? And, you know, maybe it is taking 30 days of you know, we got a guy going through our program right now who is like at 48 or 50 days of no porn, no ejaculation, no sex or anything like that. But that's not the rule. Again, my thing is always like, I really focus on let me help you, or let this organization, let this work help you get strong in being abstinent from porn, you know. And whatever else you need to do along the way, I think is really up to you. I support and encourage like healthy masturbation. If you feel like if you don't have a partner and you just need to do something with that energy, and you haven't learned to be able to just kind of sit with that energy yet, which is also something we teach, then just do what you got to do, but just don't introduce the toxicity of the porn. That's really what we support it. Yeah.
Cool. I imagine this is going to be different for every single person, but is there a general idea of how long it takes to break the addiction aspect?
That's a good one, man. I think that's a good one. I don't know. I think, you know, for me, the reason that it was tough for me, it's like, after, as I grew, let's say I grew in awareness or grew in consciousness or grew in maturity, I was able to go for longer periods without, you know, but, you know, days, weeks, months. But then I even found myself sometimes after 6 months going back, you know what I mean? So I don't know, after 6 months or 9 months, heck, sometimes I feel like if I wasn't held to such a high degree of integrity, you know, by our community and the commitment that I have to our community and to myself through this work, I mean, who knows where I might be, you know what I mean? So I feel like we always have to be vigilant. But I think after 60 days, 90 days, you know, 6 months, you know, 9 months, I feel like for me, what a lot of the work we do, and I think a lot of the terminology or the language we like to use around it is, we're like learning to build a muscle, so to speak, you know what I mean, to abstain from this behavior, you know. So we learn to recognize we don't have to react to every thought, to every emotion that comes up. We learn that I don't want to experience that pain anymore, and I want to experience this vision of a better life and a better me. So I'm now more motivated to make a new, healthier behavior. So it's like we're learning to build this muscle that we just never developed in our younger years, you know. So I don't know. It's kind of like, is an alcoholic ever completely free, or must they always remain vigilant? Must they always keep their guard up? So I'm not sure if there's a clear answer to that. But I think after, again, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you're definitely getting a lot better at making those choices. You don't feel so out of control, so to speak. Yeah.
It can be like AA, like one day at a time.
One day at a time.
No,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
porn today. Great. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I'm always thinking about how do we create long-term support, and community for our guys. Because I think staying tapped into community and staying tapped into accountability, staying tapped into the conversation, helping the next guy that's coming down the road, all that stuff, like leadership is a big component of what we do. So all that stuff keeps you accountable, keeps you tapped in, keeps you in integrity, Yeah.
So it's not like a man comes into your program, is abstinent for 60 days and then moves on. It's like they're welcome to help and show the next
Always.
guy. And
Yeah, that's I think that's my vision, is to continue just to build a community, a network of men that, that have accomplished this for themselves if they want to, and also there's support in place for the next guy coming down the road. If I'm working on creating more and more opportunities for the guys in our community to remain engaged in that way. Yeah.
Cool. And you've mentioned yourself your own kind of personal growth and evolution, kind of leading you to want to change this and making it easier to do without porn.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
is that something you see as a trigger for a lot of other guys? Like, are they growing in some way and then they realize, wow, this is holding me back?
I think so. Again, I think once, I've always been very intentional about personal development, spiritual development, evolution of consciousness, and yeah, I think at some point you kind of have this awareness, that it's not in alignment for you, or it's out of integrity for you, it's so a big component to the work we do is it's like we focus on the issue of porn very specifically, but it's also like a personal and spiritual development idea as well. So we teach daily growth, in all key areas of life. And it's like, as you're continuing to grow in consciousness and awareness, you can't help at some point but to kind of recognize the behaviors that don't serve you anymore. It's like I used to smoke cigarettes, and at some point I began to recognize what feeling good felt like so much that when I smoked a cigarette, I'm like, oh, I don't want to, When you start drinking a lot of water, I always got my gallon with me. When you don't drink a lot of water one day, you kind of recognize, like, man, like drinking water is like an important standard for me. Same thing with eating healthy. So for me, like that growth and development of awareness is like a crucial part to the process.
Yeah. No, and I would say whenever I'm with myself or working with other people, yeah, like awareness is the key. If you don't have awareness of an issue, you can't change it. You have
Absolutely.
no idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And until you have an experience of, and get that discernment of the good, that how good your body, your mind, your soul can feel, you don't know that it's possible. And then you go, oh, well, that all this other stuff I was doing was keeping me from this great state. Like, okay.
Exactly. And with that, some guys, like, maybe they don't have the awareness around it yet. And maybe they've had porn in their life for years, ever since they were kids. And they don't realize why they're anxious all the time. They don't recognize why they're awkward around women. They don't recognize why they're socially awkward. They don't realize why maybe they have low energy. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that at some point you wake up to that and you kind of begin to see this correlation. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm always in some spiritual program. It seems, but I did a big one like end of 2019. And so early in 2020, I realized, like, wow, I haven't watched porn in 3 months. And like, this was without that being a goal, without any sort of intention. But then once I noticed it, like it didn't last much longer than that. Like,
right.
it was, as soon as I shined the light on, look what I've done. Like, why did and maybe because it wasn't a conscious goal, that I decided, let's change this up right away.
Right.
But
psych yourself out.
yeah. But yeah, because again, so many spiritual programs do talk about keeping that sexual energy and not and so there's all sorts of different.
Yeah.
I guess there's different levels to get it. So if you stop porn and then you discover, oh, I want to explore, do guys kind of get on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like new, one of the coolest things to observe is like a guy that kind of like is continually waking up through the work. And it's like, oh my gosh, my energy is coming back. My confidence is coming back. I'm connecting more. I'm more present with my family now. You know what I mean? And these different levels continue to emerge. I'm sure you understand, so Um, yeah, in the same way, that sex energy, that's our creative energy. We literally create life with that energy. And so like this idea of like sex transmutation, semen retention, like tantra, all these ideas, this is old ancient stuff, philosophies. So and I'm always bringing people into. I've developed kind of like a similar kind of conversation within our community. Like, how do we cultivate this energy, and how do we direct this energy? And yeah, so I think there's continual, and like, what do I do with all this energy I have now? What do I do with all this power? How do I direct it and utilize it for good, and utilize it in ways that that give me energy instead of make me feel poorly about myself? You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if I got off track on that question.
There are no tracks.
Okay, cool.
There's just where we're going. Right?
Right on, brother. Right on.
Cool. When you're guiding people and helping them and get clear of porn, do there need to be definitions? Like, if I go to a strip club, is that different? If it's like live and in person, is it not porn? Is porn just recordings? And like, yeah, what is porn? Maybe that's what I want to ask.
I think that's a great question. So again, I always go back to, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, we're always talking about just higher and higher levels of personal integrity. You know what I mean? So again, I'm an awareness practice, like a mindfulness practitioner. So I like to pay attention. We can cultivate this ability to kind of watch where our energy is going, watch where our attention is going. So it's like some guys will bring up a question. It's like, I haven't watched any porn, but I've been on YouTube watching kind of iffy videos, maybe. Maybe I'm on Instagram going through some stuff, and it's like, okay, great, you haven't watched porn, but where's your energy going? It's like you're kind of still going in that same direction energetically. It's like you kind of feel the momentum of that decision or that action. So again, I don't chastise it, but I just encourage the guys, and it's like, let's continue to raise that. It's like, where are you really going? Because what can happen is, anybody that's dealt with it, you maybe say, I'm just going to watch a YouTube video, and then it's maybe just a little bit more and a little bit more. It's like, if we open, that's why we have to be vigilant, I believe. We call it being a guardian at the gate, and not really opening that gate, because a YouTube video before long can turn into maybe something soft core, and then before you know it, you're on a bender and it's been a couple days or whatever. You can spiral out of control quickly,
Right. So it's really more of using any media as you would porn. It doesn't matter if everybody's fully clothed, doesn't matter if it's just a conversation between attractive people, and you're okay.
Yeah, and again, we wouldn't scold it, you know what I mean? We wouldn't scold you, but we just continue to encourage, just like why don't you just be honest with yourself, and where do you feel energetically you're going with this behavior? You know what I mean? You can kind of see that you're kind of still going that, you're scratching that itch, maybe just a different way now, you know what I mean, so to speak. Yeah.
So pornography is certainly widespread. How widespread do you find porn addiction to be?
Well, I mean, we've got guys as part of our community that it's global community. You know what I mean? So I would say it's global. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the hundreds of millions or maybe billions. I don't know. Yeah.
And is to get help to say I've got a problem. Does it we talked about earlier, does it have to be kind of self discovery, or if it's a spouse, parents, or boss, if someone's telling you you've got a problem, can that lead to help, or does that just kind of make a bigger problem?
I think so, but I think it's like with anything, you've got to come to it on your own. I think you have to have your own personal kind of rock bottom, if you will, and just kind of recognize, like, I can't do it on my own. Like, where is this going? You know what I mean? I don't have any tolerance for this in my life anymore. Maybe it's an intervention. Maybe it's an intervention from your family because it's gotten so far out of control, but I think there's got to be some kind of rock bottom that you kind of have this awareness, this awakening around, and just be like, got to do something, because what I've been doing isn't working,
Yeah. Are there things that people try on their own that don't work?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Commitments to themselves. I'm never going back. Commitments to a spouse, commitment to God. That's a big one. There's accountability software. There's no-fap groups. Of course, reading a book, downloading an audio. There's a million things out there. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're not really powerfully, energetically committed, it seems like after a period of time, you either forget about the pain and you end up slipping back. You kind of forget about all of the powerful reasons you said you were never going to go back. You just kind of talk yourself back into it, or maybe you're in a weak and vulnerable state and you're triggered, and you slip back into it. Yeah, so that'd be my yeah.
So your group is called Making Peace with Porn,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
so how long has this group been going?
We began this back at the end of 2019. I think November, December timeframe. We started the group up. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And is it? Are there live interactions? Are there videos? Are there calls? Is it all just text and messaging supporting each other?
Right.
What happens inside the group?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of different levels to the support we provide, but just in the basic group on Facebook, it's I really do my best to you'll see a big personal and spiritual development theme, but I really do my best to be very active, very engaged, and really provide a lot of value. So if you came in there and you really tapped into the conversation that was going on, I think there's a lot to extract from that. I do regular trainings in the group, weekly live trainings. We do I call them conscious conversations. So we bring other experts into the community. We interview them and try to diversify the conversation and bring new, fresh wisdom and perspective into the group. So yeah, that's what someone would see. And then so we always encourage the guys, come in, make a share. I really am very intentional about cultivating a really conscious, a healthy, a supportive community. Like our whole thing is making peace with porn. Like our slogan is, "We are noble men." So I really do my best to vet and watch for the intention of the group members and make sure that we've got a group of heart-centered, conscious, noble men, and that if you do engage in that community, you'll be surrounded with support. And of course, as the community grows, there's more and more engagement that continues to occur. Yeah.
Cool. And so we're just talking about men here, and I believe that the group is just for men.
Yes.
Have you come across does porn addiction affect women as well?
Interestingly, yes. And so I always give love to the ladies too. And just due to the nature of the group, it's just for men only. Just right. Provides that safe, private, discreet container to have the conversation. But yeah, so the more we have the conversation, and the more maybe women reach out to me, or the conversation comes up with women I know. Yeah, porn is a thing for women. I'm not sure they have the same kind of that instinctual, I don't know, relationship with porn or sex, like in the same way guys do. Maybe they do, you know what I mean? I'm not sure exactly what that experience is like from women's perspective, but I definitely have heard, and I've heard the accounts of women that are addicted to porn, and definitely women that like porn. Maybe it's not an issue for them, but they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And definitely women that reach out to me, it's like, I got a porn and sex addiction thing. You know what I mean? It's like, it kind of encompasses maybe a myriad of aspects,
If someone's listening to this and they're recognizing that, they're finally ready to be like, yeah, I've got a problem. I'm resonating with this, and this is affecting my life in ways I don't want. Like, what are some recommendations? What can they do, right now?
Yes. Okay. Good. So find. There's a handful of things, and I'll list them in no particular order. Maybe. I think community. Get yourself connected to powerful community that you really resonate with. Someone that when you hear them speak, or when you see the methodology, or you bear witness of the conversation, it resonates, it clicks with you. Get yourself involved. The biggest thing for me, man, I think is make a powerful declaration, make a powerful commitment. Again, for me, it was investing in a coach. I didn't take it seriously until I put my money where my mouth is, and I made a powerful, energetic investment. You know the power of that, man. And that's really, for me, what it took for me to really take it seriously and take the work seriously. I think that's the most powerful thing. But and at the same time, I know that there are guys that have overcome porn and they have not done that. They just kind of figured it out on their own, Yeah. But I think that's the one thing. And I think beyond that is really support, community, accountability. That's key. That's crucial, Yeah.
Yeah. I find that in for any issue. Like I believe men's groups are the most powerful thing, that men just aren't taking advantage of us to the extent that they can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you to learn more about the group, to discuss, to find it?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, brother. If you're on Facebook, we have a private men's only Facebook group. It's Making Peace with Porn. You can find it very easy. So that's a private group on Facebook. If you're on there, my name is Matt Sinkovitz. You can also find me very easily there. If you're hearing this and you're not on Facebook, you can email me directly at makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com. Yeah, that'd be a way to reach us as well.
Great. And if you're somewhere you can't jot this down, you can't remember it, you can't, whatever it is, at realmenfeel.org, in the show notes for the episode, we'll have links to every book mentioned. We'll have links to the group, and we'll get you Matt's email address there as well. Matt, is there anything, and this doesn't have to be related to only porn, this is to life, is there anything that you wish more men realized?
That's a great question, man. I think that just to keep it simple, I think grow every day. Grow every day, grow every day some way, and I'm a big like advocate, and this is my thing, is like grow every way in all the key areas. Grow in the key areas of your health, your spirituality, your business and your personal development, your relationships, grow every day. And also I think really maybe even more important is begin shifting from like this victim mentality that says the world is happening to me. I'm a victim of the circumstances external of me, or I'm a victim of my mind, or a victim of my thoughts and feelings and emotions, into this powerful position of ownership, into accountability, into responsibility. Take ownership for yourself and for your life. And if we can just even plant that seed, because once you do that, you can take your power back, and you're not a victim anymore. So I think that's grow every day and just begin to just take ownership of your life and all of your circumstances.
Cool.
Crucial, brother.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And, there's one more thing I want to touch on that I didn't get to. If someone is going to continue to be a porn consumer, should they care about where this porn is coming from and how it's created?
I think so. I don't, that's not a huge angle that we take. And I'm very aware, and we definitely have that conversation and we share information. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of dark stuff that goes on within the porn industry, within the sex industry, sex trafficking, pedophilia. This is a big hot topic conversation today. So I think anybody that's aware could be aware of that as a powerful motivator as well. I find for me, like when I'm looking to make a powerful shift or powerful change in my life, if I can have multiple reasons for making that shift, it's even more powerful. Maybe if I want to quit cigarettes, it's my health. It's because I don't want to stink anymore. It's because I don't want to have bad breath. It's because I don't want to spend all that money on cigarettes anymore. I've got children now. I want to live a healthier life. So multiple reasons, right? So maybe the porn thing is not, maybe one of your reasons is not because of your personal relationship with it, but maybe it's the adverse effect and the darker side of porn that is most definitely real, so I think that's an important consideration, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, because there's a lot of talk. Well, there's a lot of, even more than talk, there's a lot more action these days around social justice.
Yes.
And you can get a mutual fund that only invests in socially conscious companies, and you can be more conscious of you only eat at restaurants where the owners support your political beliefs. And I have not heard people talk about porn as one of those ways, like how you control your porn dollars and your viewership, and and I think there's almost no, again, I think people realize what they see as porn is not real, but then you don't know the reality of how that porn is made too. It's not like it's not. I'm sure it's not a good time for everybody that you might want to pretend it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this conversation of consent. You know what I mean? And that's a big one, I think, amongst that conversation. Yeah, consent, and at the same time, again, I do my best not to judge. I don't judge the guy that says I have a healthy relationship with porn. I don't just judge the porn industry as a whole, because there's also there's most definitely components of it that seem healthy, consensual adults, and there's a more loving kind of porn genre, you know what I mean? So I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to support, the gentlemen that know it's not for them, and they can't get it out of their lives themselves,
Right. Cool. Yeah. So this isn't about an anti-porn crusade. This is about, if it's impacting you and your life detrimentally,
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
You can. Yeah. You can.
Yeah. And you can. Yeah. There's the more important point that you can. It's not just wishful thinking.
Yeah, brother.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Been talking with Matt Sinkovitz, Making Peace with Porn. Much needed. Really appreciate you being out there, being seen. I'm sure this is not an easy thing to be identified with, to become, again, to raise your hat and say, yeah, I'm the porn abstinence guy, and I'm willing to talk about it. Yeah. But again, it's needed, and I'm sure your community is very grateful and appreciative for your work. And I hope you are filled with, pride and accomplishment and seeing the lives impacted with what you share and how you help people.
Yeah, that's the most rewarding part, brother, to see lives transformed and, to see those reports come in, those results come in. It's always like, thank you. Cause it's like, you're doing something that matters, man. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So again, Matt, thanks for being here. Everyone else, thanks for listening. Wherever you're discovering Real Men Feel, show us some love, a like, a share, a review, comments. Let someone else know about the show, and especially if you think anyone is struggling with porn addiction, share this show with them, share Matt with them, and get them some healthy, non-confrontational help. Cool.
Thank you so much, brother. It's been an honor to be here, man. Great conversation. I love it.
All right, my pleasure. Until next time, everyone, be good to yourself. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Contact us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Join the private Real Men Feel Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/realmenfeel. Learn more about author, coach, and healer Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. If you enjoyed this episode, it would help us greatly if you gave a review wherever you are listening right now. It takes less than a minute and helps other people discover Real Men Feel.